Welcome to Practical Access. I'm Lisa Dieker.
And I'm Rebecca Hines. And today we're joined by Dr. Megan Nichols. Lisa, what can you tell us about Megan?
Well, Dr. Nichols is not only an amazing friend and colleague, she's also a University of Central Florida faculty member who has a really unique level of expertise in helping children and families and actually teachers with kids who are medically or chronically or critically ill. And so we are hoping, Dr. Nichols, first of all, thank you for joining us, that you can share some practical ideas for families and teachers in that topic. So thanks for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to just start with a really first question. I'm a teacher and I'm in the classroom and a child falls ill, whether it be for a day, a week, a month. Where should I start? What would be some practical things I should think about right away beyond, oh my gosh, I'm worried about my student? We know that teachers care deeply, but what are some academic things that I might be doing to help that child either as they're gone or when they return?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I appreciate getting to share my ideas on that, particularly the ideas that have been passed along to me from parents and the kids themselves, and what they're looking for, especially during those early days and when a child might be first diagnosed. And I think the one thing that I want to make sure to stress is don't hesitate or be afraid of that academic piece at all, because like you mentioned, Lisa, teachers are so deeply caring, and just sort of the inclination is to say, you know what, just take care of yourself and be well. And of course that is a very welcomed message. But what I hear all the time from the children themselves and from their parents is school provides that normalcy piece, right? So having that known and that sort of routine work, so to speak, to do for school, it isn't something that teachers need to shy away from for a child with either a new or an existing chronic or critical illness. So don't be afraid to continue to engage them in, creative and complex work. So having said that, I some really practical things that are easy, I think, for teachers to or parents if they're looking for some resources, if their situation is home-based or whatnot, is to find things that are sort of open-ended tasks for the kids to do that don't rely too much on any one device or like a paper pencil task. So, I think in teaching, we talk a lot about not being heavy on worksheet things. And, my thought on that sort of is it's never about whether it's actually a worksheet or not, right? We know that any teaching resource, it's the content of it that matters, not, whether it's a piece of paper or whatnot. But when we're actually talking about this group of kids with chronic and critical illnesses, it actually is that it's on a piece of paper that is the thing that matters, right? And so we want to, if you're a teacher and you need to be sending resources to the child's home or to the child's hospital room, wherever they are, the resource itself matters. And porous things like paper worksheets, things like that, we want to steer clear from. So as you're thinking about what is it that their classmates are doing that they can continue and work on, maybe there's a way that things can be communicated in short little video bursts, that you can record on your phone or even phone calls, but just not being reliant on sort of paper heavy things or sending over, what we might think of as more traditional schooling things. But then the topics themselves are easy to stay right on our classroom focus with our, state and national level objectives, and just expand it maybe a little bit to be more open-ended in terms of what that end result might look like for them, given the amount of time they may have to work on any particular activity or assignment. So I should probably pause for a minute to let you ask follow-up questions on that before I just ramble kind of endlessly there.
No, it's perfect. So I was actually thinking, as you gave me a great segue there, because I was actually going to ask, you mentioned some digital tools, and how sometimes having, again, as you said, porous things like a worksheet, paper, et cetera, may not be the best all the time. So as you know, in this profession of education, there are some teachers who have long been hesitant about using technology or using remote learning. And certainly we've all been just thrust into the position of using remote learning. But I wondered if this type of distance learning might have opened some doors now for families or teachers who are working with those kids who have these chronic and critical needs.
I think so. I mean, what you mentioned, Becky, I've been reflecting on, for the past months, as just how unprecedented teaching is right now, sort of globally, in the situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic, and how it now has made the conversation about teaching this population of kids much more accessible to everybody. We can kind of understand now more easily that hardship of, just all of the sudden finding yourself as either the teacher or the parent being really reliant on a different set of resources, having that distance aspect, and having to get over that learning, like a sharp learning curve in a short amount of time, with probably no extra supports, in there, either at the school level or the home level. So I think as far as technology resources go, just to offer some general advice there are lots of them. And there are lots that are at no cost, at beautiful pieces of software. For example, mathematics is my area of focus, and Desmos is a free resource that is applicable for all levels of mathematics education and can be used on a phone, a tablet, a computer. So, looking for resources that have different modalities of access, whether, and modality probably isn't the right word there, but just as far as devices, right? That it's not Android specific or, Mac specific, anything like that, because you don't know what is going to be available, either if it's something coming from, a child life team at a hospital where they likely have some devices that they can get in the hands of kids, or what the school might have for one-to-one devices that the children might have access to, or just what's in a home. Right. Some other, so Desmos is fantastic. There are a lot of fantastic free resources that you can find through the FDOE, the Florida Department of Education. If you are perusing their website, you can get to a lot of those that colleagues have shown me that are particular for like reading language arts, that are some great things that can be found on there.
Right.
Another, and this doesn't directly address your question, Becky, but it just popped in my head, and I want to be sure to mention, there's actually a group for teachers, a professional organization that exists for teachers teaching this population, or you find yourself teaching in a classroom and you have a child in your classroom who is facing a chronic or critical illness. And so educational group for children with medical needs, and they have a really active Facebook and Pinterest account where you can sign up for a lot of their free resources, even those that they will mail to you. So they have some different workbooks and resources for both parents and teachers that they'll get in your hands for no cost.
Well, you know what, Megan, that's why we have doc students. We want to have one of them find out what that magical group is so that we make sure that we
Yeah, and I can definitely
provide that
see the
link.
link in the picture in my head, but they've just recently changed their name because they merged two different existing groups under one banner. So it used to be AECMN, and then they've merged, and so then, you know, when you need to know the name, it just flies right out of your head.
So, maybe you can, you mentioned several of academic resources, and we're going to hunt down some of these other outside resources and agencies that serve kids to provide information about tools. But I'm wondering about those social needs of kids. So if I'm in the hospital and now, not only am I missing out academically, but I'm probably kind of lonely. I'm missing the people that I'm used to being around. And I know a lot of kids are experiencing that right now in a different way, just working from home. But what types of things can you recommend to help kids stay connected with other kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a great way to merge that with what is likely needed, again, if I think about something like language arts, is have it, set up something as simple as like a pen pal type activity where they can be writing to each other, whether that's, digitally sending emails or actually, writing and mailing things to each other and whatnot. But or even, there was a time a few weeks ago or months ago, I guess, when I would have said kids would probably feel kind of awkward about Zoom, but not anymore, right?
None.
So they're all using Zoom and familiar with it, but definitely getting them connected. I think that it's so important that they have that social emotional piece, even if it's just recess time, that they can feel that they're there and able to connect. If teachers can borrow, even 5 to 10 minutes a day to make that happen within their classroom, that does so much for helping the child with the chronic or critical illness feel that they can maintain that connection to their classmates. That then translates into their motivation to just keep up with the work that's getting sent as well. Instead of feeling like they've been alienated and then, just the lower sense of kind of well-being that comes over can often, just keep them from being motivated to work on the things that are sent over. So that piece is really key.
And Megan, we know your work and we adore your passion, especially for kids who have cancer and just chronic illnesses. And one of the things I think you've had losses in your profession of children, and you've saw children struggle. And what's your advice to teachers to talk to the rest of the students in the class? We're in this really delicate time under FERPA that I can't tell you what's wrong with your classmate. And if they come back and they're, they don't look the same or they don't feel the same, what is your advice as a teacher to show empathy and still be confidential in what that child's complications might be to help the rest of the class deal with some of the complicated issues that you've seen over time?
Yeah, so there's absolutely the need to educate their peers, and that need goes in both directions, right? Their peers are often fearful of the kinds of things that they should say or how they should react or what that communication can look like between themselves and their classmate, who has fallen ill. And there's also the need on the child that has the illness to have their classmates be educated. It's often that we put the burden on the child or those parents to have to educate others. And that can become, something that is difficult and tiresome, right, for those kids to have to do that. And so I think that that piece is really important for teachers and parents to work together to address, because as you mentioned, Lisa, we absolutely, have to be careful about, some of that private health information, but with the parent working alongside the teacher, I think that, and with, I should add, with the aid of some of those resources that are available, whether it's a picture book, that can talk about the illness itself and what's sort of typical as far as how it might affect the child's physical appearance, or, just some of their activities of daily life. I think helping their classmates have an adequate understanding and expectation of that just puts everybody more at ease, so that when it comes to having those shared communication times, that is a much smoother venture for everybody. And I think that, the way that I've handled that in classrooms, either as myself as the classroom teacher, or when I've helped, families and classroom teachers come together to be able to do that, it's just being willing to have a courageous, sort of truthful question and answer session, with the kids. Sometimes with our really younger kids, that has worked better in smaller groups. It's just, having them kind of in different center times be able to keep their attention a little bit better, and being able to have a little, for lack of a better descriptor here, quiet time around the topic than lots of, little voices with lots of questions at once. Right. But definitely letting them pose questions. With older kids, and some of the questions that they might be embarrassed or fearful to ask for whatever reason, like a ballot box has worked really well. Of you could submit a question, and that gives teachers a little bit of lead time on what kinds of questions are they curious about, and are they questions I'm able to answer or should answer, given some of the protection laws around private health information. So I think that that's a great tool for being able to field some of that as well before you get to that shared time in which you're going to talk to the students and have them answer questions. And another thing I'll add on to that is I've had a few kids who I've worked with in the hospitals who, I'm going to cough again, sorry. I've had them, in talking to them about what they'd like their classmates to know, I've had them write, letters like, I'd like my classmate to know this. And I've also had them do that when they are, ending their treatment. So for a lot of our childhood cancer survivors, they've gotten to that finish line and they're celebratory, and to have them kind of look back in a meaningful way really, really means a lot to them, to be able to teach others on, what their experience was and how they can then best help out, other children who unfortunately may encounter the same thing. And whether that advice is they've given it to teachers and they've given it to peers, and sometimes they've given it to parents and to me. So I think that just having them have that opportunity to say, who better can speak to what they need and what they want people to know?
Yeah.
And I think parents, that's a powerful tool as well. Like, what do parents want teachers to know? I have a lot of conversations with those parents on, just sort of if their child's teacher understood, some of the situational things, either around a hospital setting or around the homebound setting. And I know that teachers are very open to that and would love to be able to receive that kind of feedback. So just encouraging that communication, teachers can reach out and encourage parents to do that. I think that that would be extremely well received.
Well, Megan, one of the things that you do so well is you always keep this glass over half full attitude and optimism in all the work that you do. And I know one of the things that you're really known for in your research is this whole concept of robotics and how robots can empower kids. So I loved your whole statement of empowering the voice of the child. And can you talk for us just a couple minutes to summarize, and this will be my last question for you, about how you see the critical nature of STEM and robots being really included for kids with chronic medical needs 24/7, that we don't, as you said, stop the clock because their health is challenged. You actually believe that we up the game, and I would love to have you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And, if I'm being honest, I tried to be a little careful around that just because I know it's not a resource that everybody has available to them.
Yep.
But then again, I often start either, PD sessions or workshops by saying, you probably have a robot in your classroom and you don't know it, because kids are given all of these different STEM toys and gadgets, at various different times as Christmas presents, the little Star Wars one that went around that'll probably come back around now that the next movie's coming out. And just as far as educational robotics go, they're becoming more and more ubiquitous, right? And that price point keeps going down. So it's becoming, I think, more obtainable for lots of families and classrooms. And I'd also be happy to, to share, like how people can find some of those resources at lower end cost. But I absolutely believe wholeheartedly, it's my passion, that it's not just that we give these kids, the run-of-the-mill schoolwork, but that we really challenge them and we engage them in complex work, because it's, beyond the statement of normalcy for them. It's really communicating, I think, the idea that they are able and that their illness has not subtracted in any way from what they're able to do and achieve. But also that, when we talk about STEM subjects, we're really talking about these, like it or not, sort of these gatekeepers, but these very creative, rich subject areas that can connect to a lot of student interests and that can really be sort of global areas that we can reach all the school content that we need to do normally and do it in a way that is hands-on, that's robust, that gets kids excited. And if you don't grab that motivational piece for this population of kids, you've lost the academic battle before it's begun, because you are competing not only with, feeling unwell, but you're also competing with a lot of the really fun and amazing things that get brought into, children's hospitals, for example, that aren't on the educational sense. Not that anybody, would dream of wanting to have those things in their life. But if we think about, storybook characters and theme park visitors that go to children's hospitals, you're not going to compete, with your traditional textbook and, whatever school-based activities are sort of the norm there. So educational robotics, they really kind of house all of that in one, because you can create any kind of open-ended task. You can take the regular tasks that are in the math textbook that you're teaching from, for example, and you can say, have your robot do this, right? So if I just think of a quick example off the top of my head, and we're thinking about teaching perimeter, right? So if you're going to have a robot, walk out the perimeter and calculate the perimeter of different, carpet tiles or vinyl tiles on the floor, wherever they are, you can address perimeter in a way that I guarantee will be constructed in that child's mind and stick there. So it's not that you have to reinvent anything or come up with lesson plans specific to robotics. It's just that the robot can become the vehicle that creates those open-ended tasks that I started off talking about.
So, Megan, as we wrap up, you've given us a lot of good ideas for teachers and things that we can do. And we've talked a lot about kids who have chronic illness, and we all know that sometimes it's just kids who are high need kids with disabilities, who miss a lot of school and who just can't always physically be present. So, and it's not something that we in teacher education spend a lot of time, honestly, talking to our students about. So the teachers don't necessarily know what to do. So parents may need to sometimes advocate. So what would you tell parents? What's your one tip to parents if their child either becomes chronically ill, or their child has high needs and is home a lot and cannot be in school? What would be the one recommendation for parents?
I think the first thing is that don't wait, right? Don't wait for the school to reach out. Don't wait for someone to call you about the 504, the IEP.
That's a great tip.
You've got to educate yourself. And I think the best way to educate yourself, so this is where I guess I'd merge it with thing number 2, is find a group of parents who have been there, right? Or a teacher who's been through it with a prior student in their classroom, because they're going to know, and you need that. It's hard to get all of that information quickly, especially when you're under the stress of like the new diagnosis. So, it's often the case that our very well-meaning teachers and, administration of the schools may not have had this, occur within their classroom or school before. And so they're likely not to know either. So don't be shy about reaching out and contacting, but get educated, because parents have to drive that piece. They really, really do. And I think, if I'm sort of speaking on behalf of teachers, being a teacher myself, it's appreciated when the parent can offer the ideas, right? Because it's often that the teacher is trying to do the same thing as far as how to, take in a lot of information really quickly and get those answers to parents. So be quick to communicate and to have your needs be known so that they can get met.
That's a great tip.
Great tip. Well, thank you. And that was a perfect way to end a great segment. Thank you for your wisdom and your dedication to this really unique population that I think has gone unserved in many ways, and especially in the area of mathematics until your work really came to the field. So thanks for all you do. And thanks for joining us. If you would like to send us any questions, you can join our Facebook at Practical Access, or you can send us a tweet at Access Practical. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Nichols, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.